Hey everyone, this is Donna, the Technology and Media Librarian for Upper Arlington Public Library. In this video, we're working with Excel 2016. And right up front, I just want to be honest with you about Excel. It can be the best of times and the worst of times. When you first sit down and open a brand new workbook, if you know your way around Excel and you're comfortable with it, you can make this program do the bulk of the work for you when it comes to calculations. But until you get to that feeling of comfort, it really just looks like a bunch of blank boxes that make zero sense. So my philosophy on Excel in general is that if you're doing something manually, you should be wondering how you can automate that process using Excel. So in this video, I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to show you my top 10 favorite Excel automations and how you can set them up. Drop-down lists are a tremendous help if you are using an Excel spreadsheet for data entry purposes, but especially if you have data that you are repeatedly entering because that data fits into a category, for example, you can create a list for that category and simply select the list entry that fits. Here's how you can do this. So in this scenario, we have some information that's already entered on the spreadsheet. And the column that I want to turn into a list selection is here in column B. For every movie listed in A, I want to apply a genre to it, but I know that I'm only going to be selecting from an existing list of genre categories. A little bit further down on my spreadsheet, I've typed up a list of said genres. You can type up your list entries anywhere. I just chose to do it here for demonstration purposes. And I'm also going to make sure that I've sorted this list alphabetically very quickly. And then I'm also going to, when I highlight the cell range for the category names, I'm going to give that cell range a name. And I'm going to call this range genre. So once I've done that, I'm going to highlight the column where I want to make my list selections. That's column B. And in the tab, I'm going to click on Data, and then I'm going to click the button for Data Validation. In the drop-down list for Allow, I'll select List, and my source for the list is the cell range that I've already named called Genre. So in the source field, I'll enter the equal sign, and I'll type in genre because that is my cell name. And then I'm going to click OK. And you can see now that when I click a cell in column B, I can select from the list to fill the cells with the appropriate selection based on the predetermined list. Pivot tables in Excel help you organize the information in your spreadsheet so that you can better analyze that data. The first thing that we need to do when starting our pivot tables is to make sure that we have data entered and entered accurately at that in our spreadsheet. So again, using the example from my previous clip, I have a list of movies, a list of genres, and here I've added the number of copies per movie in a fictional inventory. What I need to do to start my table is to highlight the information across all three of these columns and rows. And once I've done that, I'm going to click up to the Insert tab and then select Pivot Tables. So you'll see that all the way over on the left. Click Pivot Tables. You'll see once you've clicked on that button, the selected cell range for the table. And then you can select the existing worksheet for your table to appear. I want my pivot table to show up just below the data that I've entered. So I'm just going to pop in that location based on the cell location, and I'm going to click OK. Once my pivot table has been created and I've clicked on it, you'll see on the right side of the screen a section for pivot table fields. This is where you can arrange the data in your pivot table so that you can change its appearance and change how you're representing your data. Now, one thing you can do in a pivot table is change the appearance of your values. This table has automatically calculated the sum of any numbers that I've entered. If I want to change how those values are represented, I can do that by clicking on the Analyze tab. Then I would click Field Settings, and what I'll then select is Show Values As and change that number to percentage of grand total. And now my table shows me the percentage that each movie in my collection occupies of the total number of copies. VLOOKUP is a great tool to help you automatically retrieve data for your spreadsheet based on unique information that you've already entered elsewhere on that sheet. Now, if that sounds a little confusing, it is. The reason for that is that VLOOKUP is perhaps better explained using codes. If you assign code to your information, that could be an item number, an inventory code, a tracking number, you would retrieve corresponding information that relates to the code from the table using a formula called VLOOKUP. Now, I'm building on the table from this video by adding additional information about each movie. So let's say I'm building a display to sell these movies or promote these movies, and I need to know how many copies of each that I can expect to put on that display. I have a product code now listed for each movie, in addition to the title, the genre, the number of copies, and then the actual number of copies that I have in stock. Now, if you scroll down to the bottom of this worksheet, you'll see that I've added another sheet where I have something called movie inventory. And I want to know if I just enter the product code, the first 3 letters of each title here in this first column, can I find a way to tell me not only the title of each movie, but also the available number of copies for my display? And the answer to that is yes, if I use VLOOKUP. Now, the information that we want to fill in, the title, is going to start in this cell, which is B3. So we're going to click in cell B3, and then at the top of our screen, we're going to click on the Formulas tab, and we're going to click on the button that says Insert Function. So from the available list, I'm going to select VLOOKUP, and here's where we're going to fill out information for the formula. The lookup value is the movie code. That's the data that we have, the product code. So we'll click on that cell, the cell that has the data we're looking up. And here it's column A, row 3, so it's cell A3. Here for table array, we need to find the information in the table where all of this data is contained. So we need to actually go back to the movie codes tab on our worksheet, and we're going to highlight all of the data in that table. That's all the information that we need. Next, we're going to include the column index number, and that refers to the column number where the data you want to insert would be located. So we want to insert the movie title in this case. Well, movie titles are the second column from the left of this table. So in column index number, we're going to put in the number 2. So enter 2. And because we want an exact match for results, we're going to enter false. And then go ahead and click OK. Okay, so it automatically retrieves the movie title and it populates that into our cell, so we know we're off to a good start. But we also need a little bit more information. We need to retrieve the number of available copies for that movie. We need to know what's in stock for this film right now. So here's what you can do. I'm going to replicate the formula for this column for available copies. And this is just so you can see this in action again. I'm just going to change the index number, in this case for the formula, to 5, because available inventory is the 5th column from the left in our original table of data. And once I've completed filling out all of this argument and adding a different index number, you're going to see it insert the available inventory number into the column on our inventory sheet. If you do want to replicate the formula for the next index code so that it retrieves the title and available copies again, but for a different film, what I'll do here is enter the appropriate code, and then I'm going to select the cell where a formula has already been entered, and I'm just going to drag it down from the lower right corner of the highlighted cell where you can see the plus sign. And because I've selected 2 cells, each with their own formula, it's going to highlight and select and then copy and fill both of those formulas for the appropriate cells. It adjusts the formula for the next row in my spreadsheet, and then it will update the cell references for that code in cell A4. And I can continue to do that for any codes that I want to enter into that table going forward. Now, this next tip on using autofill to enter sequential or series information is a little bit easier to set up. I know pivot tables and VLOOKUP are really complicated, so this one's simple but very powerful, because this is another technique that just saves you from having to type text repetitively and therefore, again, saves you time. So to use autofill, what you'll first do is in the cell where you've entered data, you're going to enter the first in a series. So in this example, I'm entering a time, which is 8 a.m., and I know that that will be the first in a series of hours that I need to calculate. So 9 a.m., 10 a.m., and so forth. And you can see in column B that I've also done this with dates. So I've got January 1st, 2021 entered into this cell. Now, once you're done typing, you're going to click in the lower right corner of the cell with the data. And when you see the little black plus sign, you're going to click on that plus sign holding the left button on your mouse, and you're going to drag your mouse down through the cells where you want to fill in your data. And you'll see that Excel will automatically continue that series for you. This next Excel feature, called text columns, comes in handy when you have entered data in one cell, but you need to split that data into multiple cells across columns. And typically you'll see something like this when, as I've done here, you've entered names into a cell. So you're putting together a roster or an attendance sheet. And while yes, you could create one column for last names, one column for first names, and then enter each name into the appropriate column, you can enter the names once and then use text to columns to split the names up. So I've already got my list of names here, and what I'll do is highlight the cells with the names. And once I've done that, I'm going to click on the Data tab at the top of the page, and from the Data tab, I'm going to select the button Text to Columns. Now here, Excel will ask you how you want to split up the data using the wizard dialog box that appears. And to be honest, I don't need to make too many adjustments here. This is already determined based on what I've entered that my data is considered delimited. So I'm going to click Next. And once I've done that, I want to select the delimiters for my text. In this case, I'm going to select space based on the preview that is shown below. Now, Excel will also pre-select my data format here, shown as General, once I've clicked Next. And all I need to do at that point is click the Finish button. And you can see here that once I've done that, it has separated my names into two columns, and I can then arrange them as necessary. Ctrl+ Enter, which is a keyboard shortcut, is another time saver, especially when you need to enter the same text or the same data in multiple cells. And rather than type it in continually or even type it once and then copy and paste into each cell, you can select the cells, type your data once, and then automatically copy that data to the other cells, even if they're located in different spots on your spreadsheet. In this example, I have a few different categories of cookies, and I know that I want to enter chocolate chip into each category. So what I want to do is highlight the first cell where I will enter that data, and then I'm going to hold down the Control key on my keyboard and click once with the left button on my mouse on each of the other cells where I want to enter that same data. And you can see it doesn't have to be cells that are located next to one another. Now, once I've selected the final cell, I'm going to type in my data. In this case, it's just the text, a chocolate chip. And then on my keyboard, I'm going to click Ctrl+ Enter. And there you have it. It autofills the text across the selected cells simultaneously. This next tip probably doesn't seem like a big one at first, but it can be a game changer in circumstances where you need to redesign the layout of a table without sacrificing the time it takes to retype all of the data that you've already entered. That tip is called Transpose, and it's a feature in the Paste Special menu. So here I have a small table of data. I have cookie flavors and prices per cookie as my columns. If I would like to turn these columns into rows, I can do so by selecting my cell ranges to highlight this table, and then by clicking on the copy button. Now, you can click copy up in the clipboard. You can click copy by using Ctrl+C on your keyboard. That's my preference. Or you can copy by right-clicking on your highlighted selection and choosing copy from that shortcut menu. Just don't click cut, whatever you do. After you've copied, you'll click on the cell where you want to paste your newly transposed data. So you'll right-click in the new cell, and from the shortcut menu, you will click on Paste Special. So you'll see that right underneath your paste options. At the very bottom of that dialog box, what you'll next see is a button that says Transpose with a checkbox. Click Transpose and then click OK. In your cells, you'll see that the newly transposed rows are in the selected area, and you can now manipulate that data however you see fit. In the example spreadsheet that we've been using here, I have a lot of fictional sales numbers and prices, and it would be helpful for me or for anyone reviewing this spreadsheet to better understand how the numbers stand out from one another. Now, one way to do that is to highlight each cell with a value that, for example, exceeds a certain amount, and you can change the font color for that amount. So, for example, you can make anything that's negative in red, you can make anything that exceeds a sales target in green, etc. Basically, you would just go in and change the font formatting for that particular cell. That's a lot of work, so don't do it. Instead, we're going to use a tool called Conditional Formatting, which not only represents your data visually, but also automates this process for you. There's a couple of ways I like to set up conditional formatting, so I'm going to show you both. The first is if you want to demonstrate how your values differ along a scale. So I'm looking here at the sales totals for each cookie flavor per location, for example, and which is the highest, which is the lowest. I want to start by selecting the cell range where those numbers appear. And then what I'll do once that cell range is selected is go up to my Home tab, and then you'll see a button in the Home tab called Conditional Formatting. So I'll click there, and then I'll set up a new rule down at the bottom of that menu for my cell range. So click New Rule. And then because I do want to format all of the cells selected here, I'm going to make sure that that top option for rule type is selected. And now at the bottom of this dialog box, I can set up a color scale for my data. And that can be 2 colors or 3 colors. You can see here in that drop-down menu. I'm going to select 3 colors, and that's really just for demonstration purposes, since I clearly only have 3 cells selected. And this will illustrate how the numbers that I've chosen are represented along the scale. You have your lowest, your midpoint, and your maximum values. Excel automatically populates a color scheme for those cell values. So click OK, and you'll see that my cell range is now highlighted in these colors according to that range. So red for lowest, yellow for midpoint, and green for highest. Now, looking at my spreadsheet, I also see that I want to change how I formatted this price per cookie column that I have down here towards the bottom. Maybe I want to see which cookies have the highest prices, so I can set up my formatting to reflect greater than or less than values. So what I'll do is I'll highlight this range of cells where I have the prices per cookie, and then I'll go ahead and select Conditional Formatting again. So for this demonstration, I do want to see the cookies that cost more than $2, for example. So I'm going to select, and then I'm going to click Highlight Cells Rules. And then I'm going to select from the menu that appears an option called Greater Than. And I'll select the cell that has the value that I'm using for comparison. So in this case, I want to see all of the cookies that are higher than $2. So the cell that has the $2 value is B22. I'll click there. And then I just need to select a formatting style, and you can use a pre-selected style from this menu or click Custom Format to decide how it's going to look. But when you click OK, you'll see that all of the prices that exceed $2 in value are now highlighted in that style. The camera tool is a great way to collect information in your workbook, and essentially it creates a dashboard for you. You can build a report from multiple areas of multiple sheets, and you won't need to copy and paste any of your data. You can update data in your spreadsheet and see updated values reflected without needing to make additional copy and pastes, and you can even print that report to share with others. The first thing that we need to do in order to make sure that you've got Camera Tool available to you is to add it to the Quick Access toolbar. So you won't find the Camera Tool in any of the ribbon commands. So we need to make a shortcut to add the camera to the Quick Access toolbar located at the top of the screen. So what you'll do is click on the arrow to open the Customize Quick Access toolbar menu, and from that menu, you'll select More Commands down at the bottom. Now you may remember this trick from our PowerPoint tips video, is that the Quick Access toolbar can be customized with commands that will help you work more effectively. Doing this in Excel is no different. Once you have the Customize Options window open, you want to click the menu to choose your commands and then select All Commands. You can also do this from the Commands Not in the Ribbon selection. I'm just going to go ahead and select All Commands, and then scroll through that list of available commands until you see Camera. It's listed there alphabetically. when you do see camera, click on it and click add. And then at the bottom of that dialog box, go ahead and click OK. My camera's already been added. I'm just going to show you the steps to add it to your own toolbars. Now, once the camera is available in the toolbar, and you'll see that at the top of your spreadsheet instantly, we're going to go back to the part of the spreadsheet where we want to essentially take a snapshot of the data that we've got available. So in this example for my fictional bakery, I have a list of cookies, I have a list of prices per cookie, I have sales numbers, total sales for the last 3 months, and of course I've got all my store locations. I can use the camera tool to pick and choose certain areas of this data to capture. And what I'll be doing with the snapshot that I've taken is put it in an empty worksheet. So I'm going to select the range of cells that I want to highlight in my report. And then once you have that range of cells selected, you're going to click on the camera icon that you've just added to the quick access toolbar. Now, you'll know that it's worked when you see the moving dotted line. That means your snapshot has been taken. And from here, I'm just going to switch to the sheet where I want to place this snapshot. I've already built one at the bottom of my worksheet. I've got a worksheet called Cookie Reports. So I'm going to click down here and I'm going to place my cursor, which you'll see now is a little thin plus sign in the cell where I want that snapshot to appear. And there you have it. You can see that it's now available to be moved around. It's basically a picture. So I can use the camera tool to go back to other sheets and capture data in a similar way. I can do other areas of the same data. I can go to different sheets that have something that might be unrelated to the data that I'm using. Like I said, you can think of this as building a report dashboard so that everybody who sees it gets a highlight of what data you're trying to represent. Now, the neat thing about the camera tool is while this looks like it's just a screenshot of your data, it does actually update these captures if you make any edits to the source data. So if we go back to the worksheet with the original data that I entered and make an edit, so for example, I'm just going to say that the cookie type that I have listed here is actually available at a different store, I can retype the name of that store in this cell. And if I go back to the report sheet where I have all of my snapshots, you'll see that that store name has already been updated in accordance with the recent change. So now I have a report dashboard. I can even go ahead and print this worksheet or print it to PDF, and then I can provide it to others who need to see those snapshots of my data. So we know this last tip is just a little bit cheating to include multiple keyboard shortcuts into one tip, but the ones that I'm going to share can really save you a lot of clicking. And by clicking, I mean stopping what you're doing with regard to data entry, looking around in the ribbon for the right tab, the right command, etc. You can use your keyboard to your advantage. First up is your spacebar. If you hit Shift plus spacebar, you select your current row. If you hit Control plus your spacebar, you can select your current column. Now, speaking of the Control button, if you use the keyboard commands Control and Shift and L, you can see all of the filters in your current column. If you use the Alt button, Alt plus the down arrow will show the unique entries in your current column. If you use the Alt button and the plus sign together, you can automatically sum the amounts in the bottom of the column. Just hit Enter to get that total. Now, speaking of the Alt key, pressing just once on the Alt key on your keyboard will also bring up all of the keyboard shortcuts to access the ribbon tabs and commands. Just click Alt once, and then you can press on your keyboard the letter or the number that corresponds to the tab you want to use. Now, I want the View tab for my last tip, so I'm just going to hit W on my keyboard. And then I'm going to press the letter N because I want to open a new window. You can see that that's the command just there under the Help button. When you get a new window, you'll see that, and it's kind of hidden almost, you can see that it opened the same exact workbook in a new window. So if I need to, I can actually view multiple sheets of my workbook in different windows, rather than toggle back and forth between them, I can actually see those worksheets represented on either side of my screen. And sometimes that can be a lot easier when you need to copy and paste or do whatever you need to manipulate that data. And that's it. Those are my top tricks for using Excel. I highly recommend every user gets to know. As always, if you have questions, comments, or suggestions for future videos, our contact information is on the screen here. Send your questions our way. You can also check out the description below this video for links to additional Excel resources, plus links to our digital media collection, which has all of the resources for this and for previous videos. And don't forget to subscribe so you get a notification for future videos like this one. Thanks for watching.